Alright guys, what's going on? So in this video I'm going to show you guys how to swap out shift boots here on a, I guess this would be an 11 to 14 Mustang. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing through all the years of the Coyote S197. So as you guys can see here, I'm taking a look at the stock factory console from underneath. If you guys haven't seen how to take these out, it's really simple. I suggest just looking up a quick video on how to do that. It really takes no tools and about a couple seconds to pop it out. So what we're looking at here is a trim piece underneath the console that holds in the shift boot. So you'll see these silver little tabs that hold the trim place in piece. Be very careful with these, push them inwards obviously to release the plate, but be very careful. They are cheap plastic and they'll break pretty easily. Thankfully I didn't break any doing this, but I know a couple people that have, so just be careful taking this trim piece out. Once you have the piece out, what I'm doing here is just tearing off the factory boot. As you guys can see, it's like paper thin. It just rips right off like paper. It's a super cheap material. I was actually shocked at how thin it was when I actually took it out. So that's what you guys are looking at here. So just take it off piece by piece. Try to get it off as cleanly as possible. Then obviously try to get off all the remnants of the original shift boot, which is what I'm doing here with a knife. Get off all those little pieces. You want as clean a surface as possible to glue on the new shift boot that you're going to be replacing it. Speaking of which, the boot that I am replacing it with is a genuine leather boot that I got from AmericanMuscle.com. This video isn't sponsored by them in any way, shape, or form, but there were no videos out there on how to do this, so I figured I'd make one of my own. So, guys, one thing to note is that this trim piece actually is directional. So take a look at the border of the trim piece. It'll actually tell you which side is to the top, and that side is going to correspond with the shorter side of the shift boot. So as you can see, it's not very symmetrical. One side is actually shorter than the other. The shorter side is what corresponds to the top. So as you guys can see here, I'm taking a look at the shift boot retainer. I also got that from AmericanMuscle.com. You're going to need that if you're going to go to an aftermarket shift knob. So that's what you're looking at here. So what I'm doing is placing it inside of the new shift boot. I'm placing it inside, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a tie wrap that fits inside of the groove of that shift boot retainer. So you'll see here, so as you can see there, I found one that fits inside of that groove, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to zip tie the boot around the shift boot retainer, right? And I actually didn't get this on video, but the only way I was actually able to get the zip tie to pinch and squeeze the leather was by heating it up with a steamer. So if you guys have one of those steamers that you could use for steaming clothes, that works perfect. That's exactly what I used. And you just want to get the leather a little warm and supple so that the zip tie will actually pinch the leather and bring it into that groove of the shift boot retainer. So you want to get that leather a little bit warm, a little bit moist. So I recommend using a steamer like I did. It worked like a charm. So basically what I'm doing now is lining up the shift boot with the trim piece. Obviously keep in mind again that the trim piece and the boot themselves are both directional, so make sure you have both of those orientated the same way. Obviously the short part of the boot facing towards the top corresponding part of the trim piece. So I'm just laying a little bit of hot glue, and I'm just going to take the boot and place it right over the hot glue, squeeze it in, get a nice seal. And then what I did for the entire border of the trim is, after I would glue on from the bottom the shift boot, I would also do kind of like almost imagine like you're welding, from the top into the seam. As you can see right there, I kind of got some hot glue from the top as well. Just want to obviously really make sure that this boot never comes loose, never comes undone. So again, glue from the underneath on the trim piece itself, and then a nice little line of hot glue dabbed from on top, sealing that edge of the leather against the trim piece. This is the way I did it. It came out great. It was super sturdy the way it came out. I actually had a couple of mishaps installing it, and it held up perfectly fine. So I recommend using that technique as far as gluing the shift boot on. This isn't something that you want coming loose, so I recommend doing that, just making sure that it's really sealed. And obviously that's also going to help with not getting dust in from your transmission tunnel. So obviously to get the boot back in, you're just going to reinstall it in reverse order. Now I do have a couple of tips for reinstalling it that I'm going to go over now in a separate part of the video. So enjoy that part, guys. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next one. Alrighty guys, so by now you have watched the full video on how to change out the shift boot and as well as install the shift boot retainer onto that. So as you guys saw in the video, I actually put back the trim plate of the shift boot into the center console
before installing it, and that actually turned out to be a mistake, because there is a piece of thread on the shift boot retainer that needs to be threaded onto the shifter, and basically, obviously, if you have that installed in the console, you're not going to be able to spin it on here. Although in my case, it did spin inside of the shift boot, so the shift boot retainer spun inside of the shift boot, and I technically would have been able to kind of just sit here and spin it. I don't know if that's going to be the case for everyone, just you know, depending on how tight you got that zip tie on, I don't know if it's going to spin for you. So to avoid that completely, what I would recommend doing is, once you have the shift boot installed on the shift boot plate, don't put it into the console. Bring it, you know, take it to your car and thread the shift boot retainer onto the shifter before clipping it into the console. So basically what you do is, you know, you have the bare, you know, center console out, and you know, and this trim plate will actually, you know, spin in this area without kind of knocking into your radio. So you can just sit there and thread the retainer on, then introduce the console overhead, and from underneath you can kind of just clip the plate in, and you know, connect in your little harness right there for your hazards and your traction control, and you should be able to get it in no problem. Obviously, afterwards you install your shifter, you know, bring up the retainer. It's a 15mm wrench that'll fit into the retainer just so you can lock it in. Highly recommended, guys. I hope you found the video helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.